Ms. Hasemusa. Good afternoon, honourable members, Minister, official, and if there are any members of the public joining us this afternoon, welcome to you as well. And this is the Standing Committee on Education, scheduled for the 5th of May 2026 from 2 o'clock up until 4. On today's agenda, we will be briefed by the Western Cape Schools Evaluation Authority on its annual report for the year 2024-2025. Members, I'm reminding you to please record your resolutions or requests for information throughout the meeting, and we will deal with that at the end of the session. Members, you have received the annual report in on your emails, but I have been informed that a hard copy will be delivered to your offices either today or tomorrow. Members, before we get started, we have not received any apologies for today's meeting. I am aware that some of our members are in transit, traveling to a oversight visit. So I am aware that some of you might not be able to participate fully in today's meeting, but I have seen all of you online. So thank you very much for joining. If we can just do a short round of introductions, starting with the members first. I'm Peter Johnson, and I am the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Education. Members, over to you.
Hi, I'm Thomas Walters. I'm a member of the committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Benedicta van Minnen. I'm a member of the committee.
Wendy Kaiser-Philander, member of the committee.
Today, Donita Stevens, member of the committee.
Berlin Christians, member of the committee.
Good afternoon, members. Khalid Sayed, member of the committee.
Thank you very much, members. I also see member Rachel Windvogel. Welcome to you as well, member Windvogel. Minister and HOD officials, introductions, please.
Good afternoon to you, Chairperson, and good afternoon to committee members. I'm David Mania, Minister of Education.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, committee members. Brent Walters, Head of Education.
Good day, Chairperson. Good day, members. Alan Meyer, Deputy Director General, Branch IDC, Western Cape Education.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Nadine Muller, Chief Director, IMG, ECD, Nutrition and Program, and Inclusive Education.
Thank you very much. I just want to confirm with Mr. Ballard. Oh, there we go.
Afternoon, Chairperson, everyone. Dave Miller. I'm the Chief Evaluator, Schools Evaluation Authority.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ndoisile Stephen Miti. I'm a lead evaluator.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Yolanda Miller, lead evaluator.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Celine van Zyl, lead evaluator.
Thank you very much. I think we have introduced all of the officials that will be presenting and answering to the members for this afternoon's session. Before we get started, I would just like to afford Minister Mainir, the HOD, as well as Mr. Millard, the opportunity for some opening remarks. I have also, just as the meeting started, I have seen a statement by the Minister on some possible school closures that will be tomorrow and Thursday. If either the Minister or the HOD can just briefly touch on that as well, we would appreciate that. Minister Meinier, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. It obviously gives us great pleasure, and it's a welcome opportunity to brief the committee on the 2024-2025 annual report of the School Evaluation Authority. And of course, David Miller will brief the committee. I think as committee members know, the purpose of the School Evaluation Authority is to conduct independent evaluations of schools with a view ultimately to improve the quality of our schools. And I think if you look at the presentation and at the annual report, a very important point is made. And that point is that although there is room for improvement, there are a number of schools, especially no-fee and low-fee schools, who are delivering outstanding quality education. Schools like COSAT High School, schools like Spine Road High School, and schools like Steenberg Cove Primary School. And I think these schools really are the beacons of hope in our system. So we are certainly looking forward to David Miller's briefing on the annual report. As to the expected school closures, the decision to close schools next tomorrow, we have made a decision in light of the inclement weather and the warnings, the weather warnings. We have made a decision in obviously collaboration with disaster management and the weather services to close a limited number of schools tomorrow and on Thursday. And I would ask the head of department, or alternatively Mr. Alan Mayer, perhaps just to briefly update the committee before we commence. I have also asked my office to furnish the committee with a copy of our statement. That statement includes a list of schools which will be closed tomorrow. And I'm sure that that will go a long way to supporting members of the committee who are likely to be receiving questions from constituents. So we will make sure that members of the committee receive that statement as soon as possible. Through you, Chair, then, I'd like to turn to the head of department.
Thank you very much, Minister. Members, Chairperson, maybe just to indicate that we'll be closing schools in the Eden and Central Karoo Education District, a selected number of schools, for Wednesday, the 6th of May, and Thursday, the 7th of May. And as the Minister indicated, that's to do with weather warnings. It will be Circuit 3 and 8 in George, Circuit 4 in Knysna, and Circuits 5 and 6 in Oudtshoorn, and it's a total of 125 schools. And as the Minister indicated, he has made a statement, so that information will be on the statement. I'm not sure if Mr. Meyer wants to add anything. Mr. Meyer is our point person. He has been serving with disaster management on the JOC. I don't know if Mr. Meyer would like to add anything. Mr. Meyer?
Thank you, HOD. Just a short message to the members. The Departmental Business Continuity Management Committee met this morning, and it's a normal process for us that we have the BCP meeting so that the BCP can advise the HOD on the situation on the ground and whether it requires school closures, etc. We also attended the JOC, the Disaster Management JOC, where we had representation this morning. And then we gave feedback to the HOD, who then applied his mind and supported the decision for the closure of the schools in those specific pockets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, I do not think we have to discuss the school closure point, but I would now afford Minister Millard the opportunity for his opening remarks on the annual report for today's presentation. Mr. Millard, over to you.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. I share the same initials as the Minister, but I am the Chief Evaluator, not the Minister, and not to be confused. But thank you very much. It's a great privilege to be here, Chairperson. Actually, a huge privilege to be here. And my role as Chief Evaluator is manyfold. But for the purpose of this meeting, I'm going to take the committee through the annual report for 2024-2025. I have 4 members of my leadership team with me. Fadia Hassim is with me as well. She was muted when she wanted to introduce herself. And then 2 of my lead evaluators are on the way to Swellendam to do 2 school evaluations, one at Swellendam Sec and one at Swellendam High, Ms. Zaida van der Berg and Dr. Andile Siengo. So they have officially excused themselves from being in this meeting. The team and I will present. They will present several parts of the presentation. And again, for the purpose of this meeting, I have to submit to the Provincial Minister an annual report. And I have to report on 4 aspects, Chairperson. An overview of the schools evaluated, a summary of findings based on the analysis of data obtained and the interpretation of that data, and then a summary of recommendations made. And of course, the Provincial Minister may table the annual report, and I'm very pleased that this annual report is being tabled this year. So our job as a leadership team, and mine in particular, is to present the annual report to the Standing Committee. We are an independent authority for the sake of possible new members of STANCO. We are not a WCD entity. We are functionally linked to the WCD because we are guests in WCD schools, and we do independent evaluations of WCD schools as well as independent schools that are subsidized. Thanks very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Millar. Members, any questions to either Mr. Millar, to the Minister or the HOD based on their opening remarks shared with us? You are welcome to pose your questions now. Member Syed, you're welcome to kick us off.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson, and I want to also thank you, Chair, for also sharing with me the statement of the MEC around the school closures. We really welcome this. We've actually written to the Premier this morning, so it means that the executive responded. We are grateful, and let me welcome the team that's here. Look, just based on the input that has been made, firstly, I want to register again, Chair, and it's this time it's not WCD, but it's a body linked to them, that the presentation titled SCA Annual Report. I just wanted to know when was this particular annual report tabled in the Western Cape Provincial Legislature. I just wanted to get a sense of that. Then on committee oversight, I wanted to just know, why did the committee, again, we only received the presentation yesterday. And then we received the full annual report only later on. I think that was this morning. I want to raise that as a concern. But on the independence, getting into the substance, The SCA, and as has just been said now, is an independent evaluation authority. And I understand that, and so it should be. But the WC, the annual report, says that SCA is under the control of the department. Maybe I didn't read it correctly, but that's what. So I wanted to get a sense is the SCA independent? You've stated it's independent, but if you could maybe just clarify then, what's the link with the WCD really? Yeah, I think I'll get into the other things afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Syed. Member Christians.
No, thank you very much, Chair. And yeah, I also just want to raise my concerns about, receiving these annual report. I mean, when was that made available? Because I don't think, you can have a meaningful discussion if you get the material at a late stage. We've got a lot of things to do, and then I don't know, Chair, and this is just my feeling, getting it so late, it's a problem. And I don't think we can do justice to the reports if we get it so late. So it is a huge concern, because as an oversight committee, we want to do a thorough job, and we're not questioning. I've just scanned through the annual report and so on, and there's a lot of good things, but sometimes it takes time to go through the stuff and to fit it in with your other task that you have. So my major concern is, will we as a committee do justice in going through this annual report, and why should we do it now? Because I would like to go through it thoroughly and then prepare myself. Like I said, I scanned through it, and for me, that's not enough. So that is just a major concern I'm raising. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. You are aware that we've had quite a few public holidays throughout last week, which made the working week of last week extremely short. But just in terms of the annual report, it is available on their website. The full report is available to be downloaded on the website. But in terms of the presentation, we did have some challenges getting the presentation, as I've just said. There were Monday and Friday last week, both we had lost 2 days due to public holidays. But just in terms of when it was tabled in the WCPP, the question raised by Member Syed, I just want to confirm perhaps the HOD or the Minister or Mr. Millar can perhaps answer to that. If anyone is aware.
Chairperson, I'm comfortable to reply to some of the questions.
Sure, thanks.
On the question of tabling, which was, of course, put by the Honourable Khalid Sahed, I think it's important for members to note that in terms of the Act and in the regulations, there's no obligation on the Minister to table the annual report. But I did take the decision that the annual report should be presented to the Standing Committee this year in the interests of transparency, and give the members an opportunity to obviously scrutinize the annual report and to do oversight of the School Evaluation Authority. So the report has not been formally tabled in Parliament. My intention is to table all future annual reports produced by the SEA. Honourable members will know that the SEA is a relatively new institution. It is evolving under the leadership of David Miller, and we've taken the first step this year to present the annual report to honourable members, and I will certainly commit, even although there is no obligation in terms of the Act and in the regulations, to ensuring that the report is tabled in Parliament. That's the first question. The second question on the presentation. The presentation, I understand, was lodged as per request with the committee on Monday. It was, as the chairperson suggests, slightly later than usual because of the large numbers of public holidays. On the question of the independence of the institution, I think that that is a question best put to David Miller, who is our chief evaluator, and he would certainly be best placed to talk about the SEA and its independence. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Miller.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. Indeed, we are independent. We are not a directorate of the WCD at all. Of course, money comes from the education budget. We don't have PERSAL numbers, which is a small point, but the biggest point to make around the Schools Evaluation Authority is that I enter into a standard operating procedure with the head of education and his delegates on an annual basis. And a submission is sent to Mr. Walters in April every year, where the WCD offers the Schools Evaluation Authority administrative support only. And when I talk about administrative support, when we place adverts, and I'll give you an example, when I need to hire new lead evaluator or evaluators, we go through supply chain. We put it out through supply chain, so we use the WCD processes. I have an annual event called School Certification, which Sanlam has sponsored every year. And when we have that event, the whole of Topco is invited as guests of the C. But we're certainly not linked to the WCD except functionally, because we have to evaluate the WCD schools. We report in annual reports our own budget, comes from education and budget, of course, but we still have to report our income and expenditure is not reported on in the WCD's budget. It's reported on in our own budget, and the regulations which were promulgated in 2019 by the then Premier Zille forces the C to publish its own financials, and the financials are in the annual report. So that might give you an idea. The independent, semi-independent, quasi-independent, we still need the WCD for administrative support. So the Director of Communications, headed up by Brona Hammond, she deploys teams at my request, working through the correct channels, and they do the videos. And when we have the annual event, those videos are shown. We don't have our own teams because, as Minister rightly said, we're still evolving. So at the moment, we're a staff of 20, almost 20 in total, but we want to get to a steady state, and who knows in future where that might take us. But for the sake of Honourable Syed, we certainly are independent. So thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Members, perhaps we can consider when we get to the committee resolutions that the committee recommends that the annual reports from the SEA be formally tabled in the House, but we can discuss that when we get to the committee resolutions. Member Syed, final word from you on this.
No, thank you. Mine is just a follow-up. I looked, and maybe let me just check again. I do not see it on the website, the annual report. Maybe I was, but number two, I want to support.
Not working.
I want to support Member Christians, really. For us to be having such little time to interrogate And knowing that, look, it's going to be tabled still. I mean, it would have been opportune rather to do it once it's been tabled. So, I mean, I really think that we're going to be asking questions now based on something which we've not really had an opportunity to interrogate. And it's not acceptable. I just want to put that on record. If it were up to me, I would have, and this has happened at the National Assembly before, I would have put an end to the meeting. But it's fine. For the sake of progress, we should perhaps just continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Syed. Members, I think for now, let's continue with the presentation as it is on the agenda and scheduled for this afternoon. I do not want to postpone this meeting to a later date. If we might have some members of the public present, but we can always look into scheduling another or adding this agenda item onto the upcoming agenda, upcoming meetings for more in-depth discussion as well. But before I hand over to Mr. Miller, I see a hand from Ms. Sassin.
My apologies, Mr. Miller has just informed me that his microphone has ceased. He is leaving and he will return shortly.
Thank you very much. Let's just give Mr. Miller a minute or so. I still see he is still in the meeting. Ms. Hassan Musa, if you can perhaps just see if there's something on your side as presenter.
Hi, Chair. I was just going to say now I'm going to check with Mr. Miller if there's anything that our ICT or I could call him in. Just give me a couple of seconds or a minute, please.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Chair, I think Mr. Miller's PA is in. Ms. Lawrence.
Hello, Ms. Lewisa. I am back on a laptop now. Gremlins will test one. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful, thank
Mr.
you.
Miller.
Chairperson, that's the first time that's ever happened. And it would have to happen today. My apologies for that.
No worries, we know how it goes.
If it happens in future, if it happens again, any member of my team is able to take over, sir. Let me just sort this mouse out. Thanks, Vern. Thanks for coming. There we go. Okay. Right.
David, can I suggest if you perhaps switch off your camera, it will be better because you're drawing up bandwidth with the camera image. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've done that.
Can you hear us, Mr. Miller?
I can hear you now, but this laptop keeps shutting out and then coming back online again. It's got something to do with the connectivity, which again, has never happened before. So let me share the screen with you and hope that this works now.
While you sort
Can you
out
see the
your-
screen, Chairperson?
Just give me a sec. Member side, I just saw your hand.
There's no check. Can we maybe give a few minutes then for the team just to sort themselves out in terms of the technicalities? Maybe we give about a 5-minute stretch for that, and then see thereafter if they are ready in terms of the gremlins. Thank you.
Perfect. I think let's do that. It is, let's just check. It is 14:33 on my side now. If we can just briefly for about 5 minutes adjourn, and then Mr. Miller, you can just sort out the technical difficulties on your side.
Chairperson, just for my edification, can you see the screen that I've shared with you?
No, we can't see anything. It's just a white screen. Oh, there we go. Now we can see it.
Can you see the screen?
We can, yes.
All right.
Do you need a 5-minute break, or are you ready to go?
Well, it's up to you. So what I would like to do, if you can give me those 5 minutes, is just shut down my desktop and try and get my desktop back up and running. That might work, and then I don't have to use the laptop.
Okay, perfect. Members, let's afford the SEA a 5-minute break just to get the technical difficulties sorted on their side. It is now 14:34. Let's resume at 14:39. Thank you very much.
Seems to work. The answer is yes.
Chair, it's 2:39 on my side. Looks like Mr. Miller is ready.
Thank you, Ms. Hassan Musa. Mr. Miller, are you ready?
I'm ready. Thank you, Chair. And my apologies to you for wasting your time.
No worries. Over to you.
Thanks very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to present the annual report to you for 2020 or 2025. The focus of the presentation to Stanco will be fourfold. We look at the mandate, first of all, the vision, strategic priorities and purpose, and then the year-end review, which is the reason for the meeting, and then the key findings and recommendations, which were referred to Minister in the annual report and which is in the annual report. So the mandate is to conduct evaluations of the Western Cape under Section 11D4 of the Western Cape Provincial School Education Amendment Act of 2018. That allows us to go into schools. Schools must open their doors for us. And Chairperson, it's given me such joy in the past financial year to be welcomed with open arms by every single school that we've been to. And of course, at the heart of the vision for the C is to improve schools in the Western Cape. We believe that our reports will strengthen school accountability. Schools are not accountable to us, of course. Schools need to be held accountable for the service they provide. But when we go to schools, we hold up a mirror and we say, take a look in this mirror. This is what we see. And at the heart of our evaluation of schools are three key questions. And we pose these to schools all the time, simply because schools a school self-evaluation is not a once-off thing. It's got to happen throughout the course of the year as you're developing your school. So we say to schools, how are we doing? How do we know? And what are we going to do now? So that's what we do. We go in and say, this is how we believe you're doing. How do we know this? Because this is the evidence. And what are we going to do now with our recommendations? And Chairperson, for the C, it's about intelligent accountability. We've got to be firm on standards, very fair in our finding and our judgments, and we've got to be focused on improvements. That's important. I think that's why we've connected so strongly with the schools, simply because of this intelligent accountability that we speak about. And that accountability has to be balanced. It can't be too weak because there'll be complacency and decline. It also cannot be too strong or too harsh because we don't believe in evaluations that stoke fear, compliance, or teaching to the test. So our strategic priorities, which are on our website, Honourable Said was quite correct. We have not put the annual report on our website yet because it hasn't been presented. But once I get the go-ahead, I will put it on the website because it is a transparent process. So we do have strategic priorities from 2024 to 2028, and these are the standards to which I hold myself accountable and to which I hold my own team accountable as well. So if you look at, for example, skilled, knowledgeable and respectful evaluators, part of the strength of the C are the appointments of the evaluation teams. Everyone has been fully immersed in education all their lives. They know the sector, and we have specialists, early childhood development, foundation phase, intermediate phase, senior phase, and the FET phase. And that was probably one of the biggest challenges I faced when I was appointed as chief evaluator, is getting the balance right, getting the teams right. And I was a bit afraid of getting that right. And if we look at where we are now, we have pretty strong teams, and everyone has been through the schooling system, either at school level, district level, or head office level. So we do look at key areas, the 5 key areas, and then we give ratings on them. And Fadia Hassim, one of the lead evaluators, will report on that briefly in a moment. We do want schools to improve its learner outcomes. Quality of teaching and learning is central, because if you get your teaching and learning right, and we saw this with the World Bank report as well, that was one of the pillars that they said we've got to focus on, getting it right in the classroom. Leadership of learning improvement. So the reports that we provide have to be reliable, and the priority recommendations which we make must bring about whole school improvement. And Chairperson, once we've done an evaluation, we walk away, it's then the WCED that must put the plans in place to improve the school, to bring about whole school improvement. That's not part of our mandate. That's where our mandate stops. And there is post-evaluation support models that the DDG branch IDC works on in his directorate that takes our reports and puts that into practice in a form of an action plan in collaboration with the districts. And of course, it's important for transparency's sake that people know what schools their children are going to. So we do put all the reports on our website as well. This is WCD schools data from 2024-25, 1,541 schools. In the past, before I was appointed, it was only public ordinary schools that were evaluated. But if I look at the WCD's mantra of quality education for every child in every classroom in every school, it's not just public ordinary schools. We have special schools. We have schools for the profoundly and severely intellectually disabled. We have schools for the blind, schools for the deaf. We also have a small group of independent schools that belong to ISASA, but get a state subsidy. They are subsidized independent schools. So we knocked on their doors for the first time, and I was, again, pleasantly surprised that they welcomed us with open arms. Even one of the schools that had their own OCISA evaluation, which is the evaluation authority of ISASA. And then I've given you a breakdown of the national quintile and fee status that this province pays in 2 tranches to its schools. So that's the data that I get annually. This is where the support from the WCD comes in. I need this data to be able to do the job and to choose the schools. So the C in numbers, just really, this is probably an omnibus. We did 90 school evaluations in 24-25, a 5% sample. And then we did 3 rapid fire monitoring visits. Now, rapid fire monitoring visits, Mrs. Van Zyl will let you know what they are because it is part of the annual report. We observed 2,261 of the province's teachers. We escalated 29 issues to both the head of education and the ministry. 8 schools appealed their draft reports. They weren't happy with their ratings, and we engaged with those 8 schools. So 8 out of 90 said, not happy, let's talk. And in the interest of transparency, we always talk to our schools. And in one case, we went to the school and we engaged with their entire SMT. We observed 2,652 lessons in that period. It was 1,326 hours of lesson observation. And for a smallish team, we did 1 evaluation every 1.54 days. We're limited in terms of the times we can go into schools because schools are quite busy with their school self-evaluation and their school improvement plan, which has to be completed early in February. So we give them that opportunity, but early in February, our rubber hits the road and we embark on our first cycle of school evaluations. And then when exams start, we do not stop evaluations. We only focus on foundation phase because the foundation phase don't write exams, and we continue right up to the end of the term. Of course, end of the year is always a challenge as well, but still, we can get a lot of foundation phase evaluations in at the end of the year. We do lose a lot of days because of exams, but that's part of the whole system of education, of course. And then in 24-25, we had 6 lead evaluators and 10 evaluators. So that just gives you a bit of an overview in numbers of the kind of work that's being done. Right, I'm going to hand now over to Mrs. Miller. Miller with an E, no relation to me, a chairperson, and she's going to take you through this slide. Thank you, Landa.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Chairperson and members, C evaluates schools from advantaged and disadvantaged areas. And the evaluations are conducted in rural, urban, and metro districts. Our evaluations have found that there's excellence everywhere, no matter the quintile or whether they are no fee or fee paying schools. We have highlighted 5 schools. These schools represent different quintiles and fee structures. We found that despite context, they get the job done and have a no excuse culture despite the barriers they might be experiencing. Steenberg Cove Primary and COSAT, they are no fee schools. Spine Road was rated outstanding. The rest of the schools were rated good. What the evaluators found, or the evaluation process found, is that the schools, first of all of these schools, they are safe and they present a caring and supportive environment. Caring teachers, supportive teachers, learners that feel safe within that environment. We saw strong visionary leadership, good community engagement. We saw inclusive environments, including making space for our neurodiverse learners. And then we saw values-driven ethos. So these schools, despite where they were, we find that there's excellence everywhere. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I've been rather terrified that my microphone is going to cease. So I hope that everyone can hear me. A key strength of the C's framework is that its ratings deliver clear, accessible findings, both to schools and to the public, across the 5 key areas evaluated. To ensure fairness and consistency across every school evaluated, the C applies a single standardized rating scale. The scale is deliberately concise, just 4 levels, so that findings can be communicated plainly to school leaders, parents, learners, and the wider public. Every rating is anchored in observable evidence gathered through the C evaluation instrument, meaning that judgments are never subjective impressions, but defensible conclusions. And very often we have to do that. In terms of the 4-point rating scale, inadequate, if a school is rated as inadequate or overall inadequate, there are significant areas of concern and urgent intervention requires improvement. There are key areas below expected standards, and target action is required. When a school is rated good, it meets expected standards consistently. An outstanding school and a school rated as outstanding, one is looking at a model of best practice. And even within this particular standard, one has a variance, but one is looking at exemplary performance. So schools are assessed against 5 key areas, 13 standards, and the 2024 and 2025 cycle had 75 performance indicators. But after reflection on the cycle, deep reflection, these 3 new indicators have been added for 2026, focused on school boarding houses, for example, to strengthen the oversight of learner welfare, safety, and living conditions in residential settings. And then the overall performance rating for a school will reflect the closest match across all evidence gathered. So the 5 key areas evaluated, the first one, learner achievement. They were looking at numerical data, systemic tests, in national senior certificate results, surveys, etc. And teaching and learning, instructional quality, and classroom practice. In this particular key area, one is looking at how teachers foster a positive learning environment, the quality of classroom teaching, and then teacher support for learners and for learning, and all that entails. Behavior and safety, very big on our agenda. Besides learner discipline, behavior management, one is also looking at the well-being. The C is also looking at the well-being of learners, safeguarding the safety and security of the entire school community, which includes the hostels, of course. Governance, parents, and community. Here we're looking at stakeholder oversight. The C also looks at financial management. We aren't auditors, but we apply minds to how that is being done and the recommendations attached to that management. And also how liaisons with community organizations, external organizations, benefit learners and strengthen the school. Leadership and management. Now, leadership and management is at the core. We believe that the C believes it is the decisive factor in school success. Effective leadership sets the tone, the vision, and culture of the school. It ensures sound management of staff, of resources, and curriculum delivery. And most importantly, accepts that accountability for outcomes ultimately rests at the top. So as mentioned by Mr. Miller, the C framework is not punitive, it is developmental, and its plain language ratings give schools a clear roadmap for improvement. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Hassing. Chairperson and members, this gives you an overview, bird's eye view of number of schools. Now, we evaluated 90 schools, but one was not rated. The school that was not rated was Glendale High School in Mitchell's Plain. Fozia Smith was redeployed to Heathfield to stabilise the school. When we went in, her absence was felt. And once we'd completed the evaluation, I said to the team and to Mrs. Smith, we're not going to rate you, but we're going to generate a qualitative report, and then we'll come back within 18 months. Again, and we'll do a full new evaluation. And just for verification, not for this meeting, we went back and we generated a new report for the school, and that was last week or the week before. So that report will be sent to Minister in the next few weeks. So you can see the number of schools rated inadequate, those that require improvement. Very often, I always pose the question to the team, the requiring improvement, are they close to good or are they closer to inadequate? And the team always says, Mr. Miller, there are two, they require improvement. And then our priority recommendations indicate exactly what they've got to focus on. So it gives you different areas, different metros, and the rural areas as well, or the rural districts. You might wonder why we do fewer schools in the rural districts. Traveling is expensive, Chairperson. We went to the Eden Central Karoo, to the George area, George Mossel Bay, and an evaluation costs anything in the region of 100,000 Rand. You're talking about transport, you're talking about accommodation, which we've budgeted for, of course, but the fact that most of the evaluators are centered in the metros, we only have one or two who are further out on the peri-urban fringe, means that we do have severe budgetary constraints, but we still get to the far outlying areas. We're going to Van Reinstorp in 2 weeks' time. We've been to Plettenberg Bay. I think Beaufort West is next on our agenda as well. 24 schools rated good, 22 outstanding. So that gives you the indication per district, and this is very useful for the district directors as well, who I know the DDG IDC works very closely with. And then in terms of your types of schools, in 24-25, we decided we're going to start looking at ECD centres. We only have 8 of them left, WCD centres. So we went to our very first one and it was rated outstanding. This is up to grade R. And then we went to a subsidised independent school. We went to 2 of them. One was rated good and one was rated outstanding. If memory serves me correctly, the one rated outstanding was Belleville Preparatory School in Metro North. And the good school was Darling College, obviously in Darling. So that gives you a good indication there. High schools, as you can see, are rated, most high schools are rated inadequate. And some might say, well, why is that? And there are reasons why generally you'll find more high schools rated inadequate. And I don't think it's an exact science, because not a single primary school was rated inadequate. That's a question we've got to ask ourselves, but I do know, being a former principal of a high school for 13 years myself in the South, that learning deficits do accumulate and they surface at high school. The curriculum complexity does increase sharply. Teacher supply, and I think teacher expertise has an impact. I don't think leadership demands are higher or more complex, but we are dealing with more adolescent factors, especially at grade 9 level. Anybody who's been a teacher or has been in a school knows that grade 9 is the annus horribilis for most high school principals and teachers. There is assessment pressure. There's more accountability, especially with the grade 12 results, and possibly the complexity with specialist rooms, science laboratories, and all the expenses that go with that. So that might give you a bit of an indication as to why more high schools, and that really is just an opinion based on my many years, 30 years experience in a high school. Mrs. Van Sale, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If we look at the 35 schools requires improvement and the number of indicators, then we also have what we call a RAFI, a rapid fire evaluation. Now, the rapid fire evaluation is based on the priority recommendations that's made according to the indicators and the findings in our evaluation reports. So the C conducts a rapid fire evaluation with a purpose to evaluate the progress made on the priority recommendations since the most recent evaluation. Now here we have 3 schools that's been what we call RAFIT, Grassy Park High School, a feed charging school in Metropool South, Oudemolin Technical High, feed charging in Central, and then Chapel Street Primary in Metro Central. Now, the overarching purpose remains to improve learner outcomes and the quality of teaching and learning. During this one-day evaluation, RAFI evaluation, we focus on the priority recommendations that's been based on the findings of the original report. And the purpose then is to evaluate whether school has taken actions or either as a school or with the support of the Education District Office to implement the C's priority recommendations. So if the overall rating, for instance, reflects an overall 2, a rating of a 2, and we look at, let's take Grassy Park, they had 44 priority recommendations. Within about a year, 9 months to a year, when we came back, 18 of the 44 priority recommendations were addressed. Looking at Oudemolin Oudemolin High School, Technical High, 12 of the 16 priority recommendations were addressed, which shows us moderate progress there. And then Chapel Street, a primary school, and it links to the statement that Mr. Miller just made, 28 out of 31 priority recommendations were addressed, which is commendable progress looking at the overall picture. Where the progress is insufficient, the C conducts follow-up RAFIs to reassess implementation. Ratings may be adjusted where evidence justifies a change. The additional post-evaluation support is implemented not through the C, but through the post-evaluation support cycle that's been done through the district offices or the WCED, which is a particular pathway based on the ratings of the school. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Miller, I think someone's muted.
I am sorry.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry about that, Chair. Let me start because I think I was talking to myself here. I will just elaborate on what Ms. Fadia Sime said. Schools are evaluated and they are assigned one of 4 ratings. They are either inadequate, require improvement, good, or outstanding. I will now outline the indicators that inform the rating of a school that is rated as good or outstanding. The evaluation findings demonstrate that the schools are guided by a clear, consistently shared mission and vision that informs the leadership, practices, and decision-making at that school. Now, schools work hard to implement that vision and mission and are guided by it in everything they do. These schools are value-driven. Now, honorable members, the educational program comes first. A strong sense of purpose underpins a sustained focus on delivering a high-quality educational program with curriculum planning, teaching and assignment aligned to policy requirements and learner needs. The school's main purpose is to ensure that children succeed. These schools place an emphasis on the quality of learners' work, supported by a data-driven culture that enables regular monitoring of learner performance and targeted instructional leadership and support. This approach strengthens accountability and supports continuous improvement in learner outcomes. Now, what is a positive school culture? It's a culture that is conducive to teaching and learning. Teachers and learners are punctual. Teachers plan well, and they are well, prepared because they plan well. There is a stable, competent administrative, teaching and support staff who contribute to effective school functioning. There are clear expectations, well-managed routines, and an environment that prioritizes learning time as well as learner well-being. People have job descriptions and are held accountable. There are strong partnerships between the parents, school governing bodies, and other stakeholders, which enhance accountability, resource mobilization, and shared responsibility for learner success. This is coupled with sound finance management practices, which contribute to fiscal stability, ensuring resources are used responsibly to support core educational priorities. These are financially healthy schools, whether they are fee-paying or no fee-paying. Even fee-paying schools do feel the pinch as applications for exemptions increase. The schools use the resources they have to support the educational program. These schools are generally clean, safe, secure, and have adequate facilities, create environments that are conducive to learning. Effective operations management ensures compliance with legislative and policy requirements, with functional governance structures, particularly SGBs, which provide strategic oversight and support. Now, in conclusion, overall, the findings point to well-managed and resilient schools with coherent systems, strong leadership, and supportive environments that enable sustained educational delivery and continuous improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndo. And this slide fits in perfectly with what Ndo is saying, Chairperson and members. I've always said that address must never determine success. Where a child comes from, low quality education in the schools that we've been to will continue to be a poverty trap. And that's where our resources have got to be directed to. But if you look at these 10 schools that we've put out here for you, I was very privileged to be part of the team at Steenberg's Cove Primary. We need an additional evaluator. So I thought, well, let me go and do the job of an evaluator to see what it's like. I'd driven past Steenberg's Cove Chair for about 10 years on the way to the West Coast to see the flowers, because I always stay in St. Helena Bay, in Britannia Bay. And I was always intrigued, this little school on the beach almost. And then we went there, and Helene was the lead, Tinas Dupree and I were evaluators. We were absolutely blown away. If you dropped me by parachute into the school and I'd open my eyes, I would have thought that I was at a school that was resourced with millions and millions of rands. All it was a culture of care. It was ambitious teaching. The leader who was acting at the time, she's now the principal, is effective. Teachers collaborate, and everything spoke to the environment being highly supportive. I can say the same about Kemia Primary, outstanding in every respect. Ravensmead High blew us away. And again, it's all about what makes schools stronger together. Spine Road, we know about Spine Road, outstanding in all respects as well. We know about the COSAT effect and what it can do to the future of children. Our very first School of Skills chair was West Coast School of Skills, that offers the 4-year program. We went into the workshops. I visited the school as well for the day. Helene also ran that evaluation. And the fact that these children are challenged academically, the work that those teachers and the leadership team does with those children sets them apart. Even Albertinia Combined School, that principal now is an acting circuit manager. I saw that recently on social media. That's an incredible leader at a school, leading a school from grade R to matric. And then we had one of our first faith-based schools, Mohammedan Muslim Primary, an outstanding school as well. So these are schools that set a vision, they focus on learning outcomes, and there is real leadership of learning. It is one vision, it's one community, and I believe that my bucket always overflows. That's the kind of person I am. But let me tell you, I get inspired daily when I go to schools, and I visit about 8 out of every 10 schools we do evaluations at. And yes, there's a mixed bag. There's definitely a mixed bag, which we'll focus on in a moment. But there's so much success happening in our schools. And then wrapping up now with the year in review and the key findings, learner achievement, which is key area 1. To think that learners spend 2,400 days in their 12-year school journey, and some more if they have to repeat. There has been incremental systemic recovery in maths and languages. I don't need to remind anyone about that. There has been improvement in grade 12 pass rates. We did a study of schools evaluated 2 years ago, and in 75% of those schools, their grade 12 pass rate and bachelor's has improved at a majority of those schools. Now, is it because of the evaluation? Possibly, but there's nothing scientific saying yes. But I do believe that the schools have taken note of what we're saying, and they, in collaboration with the district officers and the head office intervention, understand that we have to get to a point where leadership of learning and learning outcomes are one part of this ecosystem. The progress initiatives we've seen are strong, especially in grade 4 and 7. We've seen that the use of data varies widely across schools, and this is something that needs to improve. We get schools that disaggregate at a very granular level what the results are. They can tell you after every test how children did on algebraic fractions, and if the whole class failed, it means the teaching was poor, and they reteach that section. The DCAS mod centers that are a collaborative effort between the WCD and DCAS, we would like to rave about those as being safe spaces for after-school programs. It keeps children off the streets, and they're a great success. We have very active extramural programs at schools rated good and outstanding. Every school has an extramural program. Every school. Probably 90% of schools have a reward system as well, where they have prize givings, where they do celebrate their children. And learner recognition is a focus, and they do celebrate their successes. That's how we look at learner achievement. In terms of quality of teaching and learning, if you look at the quality of teaching and learning overall, it's not looking too bad at all. Of the schools that we evaluated for this key area, 47 of the schools were rated good or outstanding. 18 of the 90 were rated outstanding. That means basically the schools almost have the perfect memo of what makes a quality lesson. The foundation phase, if the foundation phase was a different system, it would be outstanding. But we don't see the foundation phase as a different system. It's part of the primary school setup. Our foundation phase teaching and learning is mostly good or outstanding. We've hardly been at school, but foundation phase teachers are very special breeds of people, breeds of teachers. We do find too much focus on direct instruction in STEM and FET phase. Now, I am a fan of direct instruction. I always have been, but you can't speak for 30 minutes. You lose the children. There's got to be sufficient interplay between thinking and doing. There is definitely insufficient focus on extended writing. We find a lot of schools, especially, believe it or not, our top schools, too many worksheets. That might be the secret of their success. However, they also encourage their children to write a lot, so they have a good balance there. And then just questioning techniques. Questioning in a classroom, a matric geography classroom, is very specialized. It's highly specialized. We find too much variation. Some teachers answer their own questions. They don't give the children enough thinking time. There's very little constructive written feedback or marking. Assessment for learning, where you stop your lesson and say, well, I can see you're not getting this, and I go back to the drawing board. Differentiation, it's a one-size-fits-all. Collaboration can improve. Use of ICT. Most schools have got ICT, but we think they use them as glorified overhead projectors many times, but we do see outstanding practice. And then the biggest need in education in this province is leadership learning. It's instructional leadership. So I have set up a collaboration with the Instructional Leadership Institute. I meet their new CEO tomorrow. I have a lunch meeting with her because the previous one left service with the Instructional Leadership Institute, and they have a course, a very lengthy course of up to 6 months. And if we can nail this, we can nail teaching and learning, and we can improve our outcomes. Professional development varies too often, and the use of textbooks. Despite the head of education sending out circulars, last year circular 25 of 2025 indicated what schools need to do, we're still finding too many schools where there are no textbooks, or the textbooks are in a state of disrepair. Textbooks are a vital resource, and we find in some schools they're just not being used. Behavior and safety, this rated highest overall, believe it or not. Most of our schools, most of them, the behavior is good, but I think that's because we're there often. If I look at this key area, Chairperson, of the 90 schools, of the 89 rated, 64 were rated good or outstanding. The teachers are caring. There's good pastoral care. The National School Nutrition Programme, I think, is one of the flagship programs. Yes, we have schools where there's much to be desired. We visited a school last week, but generally, I think the department can be very proud of its NSNP. And those cooks that cook in intense heat. We went to a Pulse school in one of the schools, and it was on the hottest day of the year when we had that very, very hot heat wave. And even though it was this year, they got out of the way beyond the call of duty to feed the children. What is concerning at some schools that we rated a 1 and a 2, and there's not many schools rated inadequate, is an inconsistent application of code of conduct. Children don't know where the red lines are because simply they're allowed, there's a kind of a laissez-faire approach to conduct. A circular went out in 2011 that is still relevant, 6939, with the regulations around suspensions and expulsions. I do escalate when I find that principals take certain senior boys to the gate and say, don't come back until your parents come to school. And those boys drop out. They're lost to the system. I can count them possibly on 2 hands. It's not ubiquitous at all. Routine drift at some schools, little to no routine. We know that they need routine, especially in the primary school. Internal truancy, bunking. We speak about internal truancy is an issue at some schools. And then ablution facilities. You cannot have a school that does not have sanitary bins for girls in their toilets. This is a dignity issue. And how many of our girls are not going to school simply because they don't have that dignity? Some schools have the sanitary towels available for the girls if they need them because they can't afford them themselves. But it doesn't, you can go into a school and you go into a toilet, the taps don't work, or the taps have been removed. We've seen it all, and we do escalate those issues, and they're probably the easiest things to resolve because schools do get norms and standards funding. And then access control generally is very good. Many of our schools are Fort Alcatraz. It's very difficult to get into them, and it's very frustrating when you go to a school and you've got to go through several layers of security. And when I say frustrating, I'm glad that the school puts those access control measures in place. Leadership and management. We need more principals who manage by walking about. Too many principals still sit in their offices. They're not aware that windows are broken, that things need to work. A visible principal. If you've got a visible principal, you've generally got a good school. And accountability and professional responsibilities are elements of those leaders we rated good or outstanding. The principal of COSAT is a good example. The principal of Steenberg's Cove. There is clarity of purpose and vision by these leaders, and they do review on an annual basis the SSE, the School Improvement Plan, even their vision. But there are concerns that the C has, and we have had discussions with the head of education, the minister, that there is little or no in-service career framework for middle leaders. There has to be a very, very robust career framework for middle leaders. The delays in processing promotion post-appointments is one of our escalations that we submit. SG and Minister are aware of this. Leadership of learning I've mentioned, and low expectations of learners. I speak about benevolent pathology. If you have low expectations of learners, they'll meet you at those low expectations. We went to a school, I won't say which rural area, and we went to two different schools, possibly within a kilometre of each other. The one school was rated outstanding, the other school was rated inadequate. And I'd like to quote what the teachers said in the one school, that these children will not amount to much because their parents are seasonal fruit pickers. Now, as someone that grew up on the wrong side of the line in the north of Manchester, I know that teachers are the only people that can help children beat the poverty trap. If I had a magic wand, I would have closed that school down or fired the teachers and asked them to reapply for their jobs. That's only happened once in all my time at the sea. But we've got to have high expectations, and then interpersonal conflict at times tears the school apart, where the principal and the deputy don't see eye to eye. And, you know, when the elephants fight, it's the grass that gets trampled. And the final key area is governance, parents and community. It's going pretty well. I do believe, or we do believe as a C in our reports, that SGBs must be capacitated more. We can't just have training when we have governing body elections. And I see that the chief director responsible for that director is in the meeting. It's got to be an ongoing cycle. It's like a school self-evaluation. Financial management is one of the biggest concerns. When you go into a school and you find that the school account is linked to a principal's personal bank account because there was a problem with the school account, straight away the red flags, you start to raise the red flags. But fortunately, that is escalated immediately. We raise these issues because we know that financial custodianship is a feature of good and outstanding schools, and that every cent has to be accounted for. You can't walk into a strong room and find an ice cream container with money from the civvies day 2 years ago. That money must be banked. That is the law, and we do expect schools to follow the law. So that's important. Our RCLs must have a stronger voice. We find that that isn't strong enough. And if the WCD can take note of that as well, it's so important. But again, the WCD can't micromanage this. This is up to schools and school governing bodies. And then conflict between governing bodies and principals. Sometimes governors don't know their place. They don't know that their line stops at governance, and they've got to leave the management of all staff. The personal administration measures, the PAM document, the principal is responsible for all staff, whether it be WCD staff or SGB appointed staff. It's not the governor's responsibility. And we found some conflict when governors think that they, let me use the concept, rule the school. And we have many governing bodies that we've seen are power hungry. And unfortunately, those principals are a little bit browbeaten. And you've got to have a good relationship with your governing body. Otherwise, your life is going to be a misery. And then, Chair, we believe from what we've seen, the evidence as it's presented itself, SGBs are very eager to get involved at schools. And then finally, the recommendations, which is the last part of the presentation. We've made some recommendations. It is unfortunate some schools see the school self-evaluation process and school improvement plan as a once-off. It should be an aspirational vision, and it must be continuous. It must happen all the time. I do believe that we can use our data better, especially at school, to track learner progress and pivot where necessary. We have CTLI, which is a flagship program that offers incredibly effective courses. But when we talk about the three knowledge systems of education, which is curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment, we've got to focus more on that. And I saw recently what CTLA was putting out, CTLI, and it was doing that in the languages of mathematics. Now, I don't know if our reports have resulted in them seeing what the need is, but I've certainly had a collaboration with the DDG, Bertram Lauriston. I had CTLI's acting director here with his acting CESs at the C's offices, and we do send our reports because I believe that the recommendations we make should inform the kind of programs that the CTLI offers to the teachers and to the leaders in this province. And then a framework to assist our principals to improve. I think that's missing. I think that 1 week training we give new principals, I think it's rushed. And we've got to focus more on a continuous cycle of improvement. Instructional leadership is a must. It's very specific. It's very specialized. Our principals are not administrators. We're not America. We're not the USA. We don't have an administrator and a principal. We have a principal. The first job of a principal is the leader of learning, getting into the classrooms with his management and leadership teams and leading learning, because it's leading learning that improves learner outcomes. Change mindset program, especially with that school in Swellendam, where those teachers said those children would amount to nothing. That is important that those teachers at that school do that. I don't think that should be offered generally at all schools. Time management. We do find that some schools do not follow notional time per phase per subject. In the high school, from actually in the senior phase and the FET phase from grade 7, all children, all learners must have 1,650 minutes of tuition, according to the national policy. We do get it right in this province most of the time, but I do alert the Minister and the Head of Education when we don't get it right. And then the district model of curriculum support. It's no secret that the foundation phase flies simply because every circuit has its own specialist curriculum advisor. Whereas when you hit the intercept, you might have 150 primary schools in the district and you might have one subject advisor for natural sciences. Now, how you can spread one subject advisor across 130 schools, it spreads thinly. Something's got to give. Intermediate phase and senior phase subject advisors must spend more time in classrooms. I had to escalate an issue where 3 subject advisors arrived from a district office and sat in the staff room and asked for files and books. And when the principal asked would they go into the classroom, they refused. I did escalate that because a subject advisor's exact job description is to go into the classroom and to support the teacher. You can't sit in a staff room and assess teaching and learning. Leadership of learning is paramount. It's critical. The World Bank report said the same thing. And then the QMS system, which replaced IQMS, yeah, I do worry about a bit of embellishment there, especially at schools rated a 1 or a 2. So these are all spoken about at monthly one-on-ones with Minister and SG. We have really good discussions about this. So nothing is new to Mr. Mayor or to the SG in this meeting, Chairperson. So my concluding remarks as Chief Evaluator, there is excellence everywhere, but there is work to be done. Steenberg's Cove, that hope is real. It's hard won at many of our schools. Foundation phase is flying. It really is the flagship phase. And where expectations are high, learners meet those expectations. And this is an important point when schools say, oh, what is the school's strength? And they say, we feed the children. You know, that kind of response doesn't impress me because schools must know the difference between caring and care. Caring schools have high expectations. Steenberg's Cove Primary, as poor as those children are, as disadvantaged as they are, those teachers have high expectations. Mrs. Vrachum in her grade 6 maths class sets the most incredibly difficult problems for those children. And I always say to schools, well, caring schools have high expectations, and to expect less because of address is uncaring. And there's not a single school where leadership is rated 3 or 4, where the outcomes are bad. Outcomes are always good because the teaching is good, because there is deep leadership of learning. And there has to be more deep conversation about professional development, what it is, what it means to the profession. I know that SACE has a role to play here, but if truth be told, our DDG in this province is second to none. I think he's the right guy for the job. And so is our chief director, whose responsibility is to make sure the CTL courses are fit for purpose. But I do believe, Chair, or we believe as a team, we've had these discussions as well, that instructional leadership must become a WCD core priority. If it isn't, then we've got to make our principals administrators. There's a huge difference. Some of our principals think they're administrators, and that's why the schools are falling apart, because they don't get into the school building. So, Chairperson, where are we now? How do we know? Where do we want to be? And how do we get there? And how good can we be? Must become each school's improvement mantra. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller, to you and your entire team for a very detailed presentation. Before we get into the questions, members, I would just like to firstly apologize. I was informed that the annual report is available on the SEA's website, which was not the case. So I would just like to firstly deal with that. But it was sent out by Ms. Hassan Musa, and you will get a hard copy as well. Members, with that being said, I'm looking at you for questions. If we can do 3 questions per round, and then we will look at a second round. I see Member Syed and Member Christians. Member Syed, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chair. Let me welcome the presentation. It was quite a comprehensive one. I think it was maybe disarmed the amount of questions. I just wanted to get a sense as to there was and this is not necessarily on the presentation, but there was a statement made around the high cost of doing some of the visits to the rural schools, because that's really important. I just wanted to know if there have perhaps maybe been requests made to the department for more funding, particularly with regards to those visits. I think that becomes important. Then the presentation says that there were 29 escalations to WCED. What were these escalations about? And which schools were involved? And what actions were taken by the department? And were you happy with the actions that were taken by the department? On the issues around schools that have appealed, 8 schools appealed their draft reports. I wanted to get a sense as to what were the grounds of the appeal. And you may not be able to have all 8 there with you, but generally, what did we pick up in terms of the grounds of the appeals? How many appeals were successful? And what does it tell us about the fairness and reliability of the process, but also about the receptiveness when it comes to schools relating to the work of the School Evaluation Authority? Finally, on school governing bodies, the SEA says that SGBs, and you've said it also, must be capacitated more. I agree with you. I mean, it's just, even when it comes to understanding how an election works, there's a lot of issues that even come to us as public reps, but especially in terms of financial management. What budget and program, and this is a question to the WCED now, who are here, because I think you also spoken to them here in your presentation. What budget and program does the department have in place to ensure that SGB training is something that is continuous and not just a once-off event, as per what the School Evaluation Authority has indicated? Thank you.
Thank you, Member Syed. Member Christians.
No, thank you, Chair. And Chair, I want to remind you, this is a 2-hour session and not a 3-hour session. So I need to leave at 4 o'clock because that is the time allotted to us. I think if we had a 3-hour session, it would have been fine that the presentation, because it was a very, very comprehensive presentation. I don't critique that. I'm just thinking the time allocation for asking questions it's not going to work 100%. We still need to look at resolutions. So just a reminder that this is until 4 o'clock. So Chair, I just want to latch on to what Member said, because that was one of my questions. The 8 schools that that appealed. Now, I can remember that it's 8 out of 90, and that was emphasized to say that it was 8 out of 90. So it's a small percentage. The question that I want to ask, and I think it's in line with what Messiah said, is, you know, how do you see when you see these appeals, you know, so there's appeal to the findings. Now, is there, do you appeal to C, or does it go escalate to the minister or to the HOD, so that, you know, there is an independent person that also looks at the appeal process and not in the hands of C alone? So that is, and how do you then bridge that gap? You know, because the school is very unhappy because they were maybe poor performance or whatever the case may be. There's a disagreement. How do you bridge that gap then moving forward? Because you don't want to now, you know, like you say, it's about being accountable, but also not to scare them off. So just to give some explanation about that. Maybe just another question is, and it's a question I think it's important that the sample that you have, a 5% sample, is that sufficient? Is it? I know you were talking about you know, capacity constraints and leaning on the Department for Administrative Support and so on. So I know it's about that, but is it? I know the visits and the improvement, I'm not criticizing that. I think there's a lot of value in upskilling schools and getting them to a level, a better level of operation. But my question is, the 5%, is that sufficient to give a reflection of the entirety of the Western Cape? Maybe, you know, and what is your plans forward? That you can maybe visit more schools and maybe, you know, have, because there's, if that the report, the presentation that we received, it's a good indication of the work you do, and I'm sure there's a need for more. So maybe if you can explain that. And my last question, the last question will be, I know when we discussed it last, when we discussed this last, and I was part of the Standing Committee 2018 when we passed this amendment to the Western Cape Schools Act, there were no other C's in the rest of the country. There was nothing. Did you have, and maybe for the minister or maybe the HOD, is there conversations because of the benefits of C? Is there maybe, you know, talks to other parts of the country also to say, listen, this is an excellent tool to look at accountability and monitoring and to really get our learners to another level? Is there those talks? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Christians. Last member for this round, Member Van Vogel, as an alternate to this committee.
Thank you so much, Chair. Mine is very short. I have interest in. I think the presenter referred to, or could he perhaps elaborate on the specific schools that he referred to in Swellendam? As this is an area where I'm deployed and I have vested interest in it and would like more information about it. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Member Van Vogel. I think let's deal with the first 3 questions, and then for the next round, we will start off with Member Walters. Mr. Miller, over to you.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. Yes, Honourable Syed, there is a high cost involved, yes. Have I requested more funding? I know that funding is very tight. Minister has said to me, and I quote Dave, if you need more money, let me know. And this was about a year ago, and I've always responded, I will make it work. So no, I haven't made a formal request for more funding at all. Our budget for this financial year is about 17 million, which is not a huge amount of money for the kind of things, the kind of speed we're working at. You know, we're working at a very, very fast pace, and also take into account that when we do escalate and we do make priority recommendations, that the department has to have the capacity as well, because they're part of the post-evaluation support model. So the escalations, Mr. Syed, I have them in front of me, the 29 schools that we escalated, and there's a range of issues, from overcrowding to gas safety. For those that don't know, for example, you cannot have more than one gas bottle in an NSNP venue or in a tuck shop. An issue like fire extinguishers that do not allow carbon dioxide gas to escape in an IT centre, they've got foam. I mean, that is an accident waiting to happen. We do escalate those kinds of things. Overcrowding, you know, we haven't had too many escalations on that. Learner transport systems at Steenberg's Cove on the West Coast, one of the service providers on a bus, Honourable Syed, that bus's wheels weren't, you could see they weren't really, the tyres were smooth, the fog lights weren't working and the reverse lights weren't working. So our escalation is a recommendation to remove the bus from service, contact the service provider, we give the name and the LTS route number to Minister and SG, that gets passed down, and you asked the question of what next. We don't know whether or not that has been done unless it's reported directly back to the C. So the SG, the biannual report, which the SG presents to the Minister and to the Chief Evaluator, it was on the agenda for the last meeting, which happened approximately 10 days ago. I will have access to that biannual report so that I can see what kind of actions are being taken. But in terms of the actions that need to be taken, sir, that is a departmental mandate, a function of the department and the district offices. We don't often get to hear about the nitty-gritty of what action was taken. When they appeal the reports, the 8 of them, how many were successful? Not many. We do listen to schools. We had a school, Saldana Primary. They appealed the whole report. They sent a 24-page rebuttal. Now, you've got to honour that rebuttal and respect the rebuttal. And what I did with the lead, Saida van der Berg, who's on her way to Swellendam again today, the team and I met the governing body chair, the acting principal, and the entire SMT. And they took us through the entire 24-page rebuttal. We had our own rebuttal to their rebuttal, and we believed that they were taking fat chances. What we saw was what we saw. You see, you've got to triangulate evidence. But again, it's about the engagement, it's about the professional engagement. We're a guest at their school. So we value and honour the response from the schools, and the fact that they rebutted in 24 pages shows me that they've read the report word by word. And these reports are about 20, 25 pages. Then we had a school, a special school that asked if they could have a meeting with me and the team. And we went through, and the principal said, this report is not fit for purpose. And she disputes the ratings for 2 key areas. So we went one afternoon, we drove through, we met with her, we took account of what she said. I went back to my leadership team, and she had all the cards. She was quite correct. We were at a special school. The instrument wasn't adapted enough for special schools because special schools don't have to write systemic evaluations. Bachelor passes at special schools are a bonus if they should be getting every child through matric, those special schools that have mainstream children. And member side, we changed the instrument. We now have a school of skills instrument, We have an instrument for profoundly and severely intellectually disabled schools. We also have an instrument for the mainstream special schools like Tafelberg. And last year at our certification event where we certified her school outstanding, I thanked her publicly for influencing the way the C operates. And it's that spirit of engagement that makes us better at what we do and makes our reports far more credible. And then you asked a question about SGBs and you requested the WCD possibly to comment on that. And then let me just answer Member Furlan's response. So they can't they can't appeal to anybody but me. They can't appeal to the minister or to the head of education. Firstly, we're not connected to the WCD. The minister was not at the school. The evaluation team triangulated all evidence. It made its findings. So if they have a problem, they have to appeal to me. I then review the appeal. We had an appeal this week as an example. The principal has possibly taken the ratings quite personally. We cannot up the ratings for the school because if we up the ratings for the school, the overall rating would change, but it's not that. I don't mind doing that. And my team can vouch that we've changed some ratings in the past on successful appeals. Okay, we never quite saw that. You never made it available. Thank you for making it available. So there can't be an independent person, Honourable Christians, for that. The sample of 5% is a big sample, absolutely. To think that last year we did 129 schools, and I've got to report to you soon on those, and this year we've got 140 schools that we want to do. The province has got 1,500 schools. I no longer believe on a cycle that every school should be evaluated every 5 years. I don't believe that. I believe the Scottish model, that we take a sample of schools across the board and we sample them. And I think 5% with the team that we had is pretty awesome. A major constraint is the staffing in an ideal world. And we've had this conversation. I'd love to have a team of 30. I'd love to have 10 lead evaluators and 20 evaluators. But I don't want that for the purpose of just churning out reports. We've got to have the capacity at district level as well to support those schools. So it is a combination of a human constraint, human resource constraint, and it is a constraint in terms of finances. If we had more money, we could go to more schools, and that links to the last question around the schools in Swellendam. It's not a good idea to give you the names of the schools. The schools are on our website because, you know, I don't want, you know, those reports will flesh that out for you. And that's deeply personal. And we discuss that because we don't want benevolent pathology to be pervasive in any school, because then low quality education is a poverty trap. But let me take a broader church of advice on that, please, Honourable Van Voorgel, and get back to you, because that is the constituency I understand that you do serve. But we're at 2 schools in Swellendam this week. We're at Swellendam Sec and we're at Hoërskool Swellendam. So if you're in the area, you're most welcome to pop in and see the 2 teams there that are being led. Chairperson, I think I've covered. If I haven't, please feel free to correct me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I just want to confirm with or check with the department. There was a question from Member side to the department about support to SGBs. I'm not sure if there's anyone that can answer to that.
You can ask Mr. Mayor to just maybe talk about the work that is done from the time when the SGB is elected, what support we're giving, training, follow-up that we do, and so on. Mr. Mayor, please.
Thank you, HOD. Thank you, Chairperson. So we do training of all governing bodies as soon as they are elected. So next year, when we have the election for new governing bodies, we will then provide an immediate training on roles and functions, for example, of the various officials on the governing body. But we will also do some policy developing training as well as financial training. Every year we issue a calendar of various training interventions for SGBs, and that is available to governing bodies via the schools, where they can identify courses they may be interested in attending and approach us. Alternately, a direct question or from a school requesting support, we deal with those cases on an ad hoc basis as well. For example, suddenly there's been a flare-up of disciplinary issues at the school. We would run training on the expulsion, suspension, and expulsion procedures, and prepare the governing body and the disciplinary committee for those processes. So that is ongoing training that's done. We also do training around, particularly around nepotism, the recruitment and selection process. We also do quite a bit around work with the Provincial Forensic Unit, who also provides training to governing bodies around ethical behavior, etc. And those are all aimed at supporting governing bodies to play their role a lot more effectively and efficiently within the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Members, we're moving to a second round, and I have Member Thomas Walters waiting for a very long time. Member Walters.
Yes, let me first say that it's an absolutely fascinating presentation. I'm a systems person myself, and again, one can see the possibilities of this particular process or initiative. My question is, do you have data available? And perhaps I missed it between the lines there, of schools that move into an improved band, or now I'm asking across the board, are there indications of systemic improvement? In other words, X number of schools moving into, call it an upper category, and the converse also is true in the opposite direction. Do you have data available in that regard? It would be, I think, a very, very useful addition to how we look at education in the Western Cape. We tend to look at matric results. We tend to look at, we'll call it aggregate figures to measure performance and improvements. This type of approach, if it can be properly systemized across the entire educational system, also tells us at another level and also with more depth what the improvements are in education. A lot of what you say I find very inspiring. I think we all, at the end of the day, we all want to as politicians, we want to see ongoing systemic change, especially these examples of schools that were poorly performing all of a sudden doing very special things. And maybe just on a personal note, many years ago, I remember Ida's Valley Primary in Stellenbosch not being one of the top schools. And it's really fantastic to see that they are rising, that they are making an impact. So we want to see, we would like to track more stories like that and see how it becomes a reality for more pupils. I hope that made sense. But yeah, the core question is that an aggregate level measurements that show us to what extent schools are either improving or not improving using your benchmarks? Thanks.
Thank you, Member Walters. Members, any further questions? Member Christians?
Chair, just a follow-up. It's not a new question. It's just a question that I ask a CS working in the Western Cape, and I asked the Minister of HED did they speak to other colleagues in other parts of the country? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Member Christians. Apologies, I forgot that question. I just want to see if we still have space for one more member on this round for a final question. If there's anything from anyone. Okay, I don't see any hands. Minister, if you would like to answer to the question posed by Member Christians.
Thank you for the question. I think the Honourable Furlong Christians captures it well. The School Evaluation Authority is unique to the Western Cape, and there are no similar institutions, to the best of my knowledge, in any other provinces. There have not been any policy discussions, as far as I'm aware, at a ministerial level with other provinces, although as we build the School Evaluation Authority, it is my intention to advocate for similar institutions in other provinces, and also to share the School Evaluation Authority annual reports and results with the National Minister of Education. It is possible that there may have been discussions between the School Evaluation Authority and possibly other provinces, or indeed the Department of Basic Education, and I'm sure that David Miller can respond to that part of the question.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Miller, over to you for responses on the questions from Member Walters and Christians. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I have had 2 engagements with the DBE from the Directorate of Whole School Evaluation. Now, remember, Whole School Evaluation was the collective agreement as part of a broader collective agreement. So the Director for Quality Assurance has met with me twice. They came down for engagements with the WCD, so they thought they'd kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The first time they came down, they were quite blown away with the work that the C was doing. And then we invited them to the certification event at the end of last year at Sanlam, and they came down. I think they're very interested in the model, but that's as far as I'm prepared to take it, because I don't know, like Minister said, there's no policy directive yet. However, the second time they came down, we had further engagement around the work that we do, and it was quite shocking for me to know that with the small team that the Schools Evaluation Authority has, we have done more schools collectively than the entire rest of the country. All the other provinces haven't done nearly half of these school evaluations that we've done. Now, whole school evaluation has its purpose in those provinces. Schools Evaluation Authority in this province does not do whole school evaluation. So that's the limits of the engagements. But it really is good to know that the DBE and the Directorate of Quality Assurance and Whole School Evaluation has reached out twice and has met with us twice, Chairperson. In terms of data, Honourable Walters, it depends what data points that you want. I did an impromptu kind of study of matric results over a 2-year period, and we found that in 3/4 of the cases, the matric results had improved, and these are schools that had a school evaluation. Now, again, I can't tell you it's because of the evaluations that this has happened. There's so many things that can be reported on. If you look at, for example, the application of Gazette 6939, suspensions and expulsions, we can report on that, but we're not quite sure how those are handled, because that's happening on a daily basis in the education ecosystem. If we escalate vacancies, the principals, that's certainly a data point that we can map and say there has been an improvement in the period of time it's taken between the previous incumbent vacating and somebody being appointed. So we are data rich. The thing is, I don't necessarily have a data specialist, and I don't want to have to burden the Chief Director in De Vega and his team with crunching the numbers, because we'd have to be very specific around what we want. But I invite you to send me any kind of data points you would like, or you're thinking could be used so we can improve the system more. I'd be very open to that kind of engagement, sir. Thank you. And then I think Honourable Christians' response has been answered by Minister, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Miller. Members, that brings us to the end of the question and answer session. It has gone 4 o'clock already. With that being said, I will now afford in that order, the Minister, the HOD, and Mr. Miller the opportunity for some concluding remarks. Minister Meinier, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I want to thank you and the committee members, obviously, for the opportunity to present the annual report. As I said in my opening remarks and in my opening responses to questions, it is my intention to table the annual reports of the C going forward. And I really do hope that the committee will consider visiting a selection of schools evaluated, whether those schools have been evaluated as outstanding or indeed as inadequate, so that the committee can make its own determination of whether the recommendations have been implemented by the school, and in that way, I think, play a very significant role in driving school improvement in the Western Cape. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. HOD.
Chairperson, I think I'm largely covered by the Minister's comments. Maybe just to say thank you to David Miller and his team. I think we get regular reports from them, and there's no doubt that schools that they have reported on, in the main, you see improvements that can actually come from having that almost played back to the school. And so to encourage him and his team to continue the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, HOD. Mr. Miller.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. I have great respect for the work that you do with your different political parties, and it really is refreshing to engage with you in this manner, and it's certainly at this level. At the cost of repeating myself, the C will continue to work hard in schools because the goal is intelligent accountability. That's the mantra. We will continue to be firm on standards and fair in our findings and our judgment and focused on improvement, because learners learning well, being safe and supported is the first priority. Thank you for the engagement this afternoon, and I wish you well for the work that you do for the rest of the year. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. We will definitely be visiting some of the schools where you have recently concluded some of your work. Minister, HOD officials, Mr. Miller, you and your team, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. You are welcome to leave the meeting now. If the rest of the committee can just stay behind while we conclude with some of the committee business. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Chair. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Members, thank you very much. We will now deal with our committee resolutions. I just want to confirm with Ms. Hassan Musa if you have recorded any resolutions.
Chair, the only one that I've recorded is that the committee will visit some of the schools concluded under C during the evaluation.
Thank you, Ms. Hassan Musa. I wanted to add, actually wanted to bring that resolution to the committee. Members, any further resolutions from your side? I did mention to perhaps recommend, or that the committee recommends that the annual reports from C be tabled in the House, whether it's just for noting purposes, but in the committee will then also always be updated as to when the report is actually released. If you are all in favor of that, anyone oppose, please, you are welcome to raise your concern now or bring up any further resolutions or requests for information. Okay, I do not see any hands. Ms. Hassan Musa, I just want to confirm that is our business for this afternoon.
Yes, Chair, that's the business for today.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Members, thank you very much for joining. This is the end of our meeting. Have a great Tuesday afternoon. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.